Govindaya namo namaha. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, welcome you all to today's discussion as part of the Bhakti Vaibhav Fast Track course. So to understand a bit of a context for this particular chapter, which is entitled The Appearance of Shukadev Goswami. So we see in the earlier part of Canto 1, in chapter 4, the sages of Naimisharanya, they being satisfied with the answers given by Suta Goswami for their primary set of 6 questions, including what is the uh, what is the best welfare activity for people in general, what is the essence of all revealed scriptures, and why does Lord Krishna appear as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, so on and so forth. So these primary 6 questions, after they have been answered by Suta Goswami, being enlivened by those answers, the Shaunakadi Rishis, they ask secondary set of questions, which mainly relate to the history of Srimad Bhagavatam. How did the author of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadev, got inspiration to write this important scripture describing the pure devotional service to Lord Krishna? Next question was about the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, about Shukadev Goswami, who has been briefly described in chapter 4 and 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam before the Narada Vyasa Samvada begins. And then third third secondary question was related to the primary audience of Srimad Bhagavatam, namely Maharaj Parikshit. How did Maharaj Parikshit, how did he take his birth? How did he perform his duties? How did he spend his life on this earthly planet? And most importantly, how did he meet with his death? And through that process, how did Srimad Bhagavatam came into being? How did Lord incarnate as Srimad Bhagavatam in this particular world, material world? So the answer to the last question, it forms major part of first canto. And we see Suta Goswami while replying to this secondary set of questions, first describes interactions between the Lord and his pure devotees, including the Pandavas, including Yudhishthir Maharaj, Queen Kunti, Bhishma Dev, and subsequently the loving exchanges between these pure devotees and the Lord in terms of Lord leaving Hastinapur and entering Dwarka. These are described, and followed by that, the background to Maharaj Parikshit's birth has been described, then his activities, and now we come to the last portion of Suta Goswami's answer to this description about Parikshit Maharaj's death. How did he meet his end? And in that process, how did he came in touch with Shukadev Goswami, and how did Srimad Bhagavatam appeared through the mouth of Shukadev Goswami? So this is a background on a high level. Then we subsequently saw in the previous chapter, chapter 18, how Parikshit Maharaj was cursed by the impudent, proud son of Brahmana Shringi, Shamik Rishi, the son of Shamik Rishi, whose name was Shringi, how he, in his immature, impudent state, how he considered Maharaj Parikshit to be a very lowly being in front of the Brahmanas by giving example of that of a dog, that just like a dog, when it considers itself equal to the master, not understanding its position outside the home, similarly the Kshatriyas who in the Varnashram institutions, they need to properly respect and understand the topmost position of the Brahmanas. So being proud of this, being born as a Brahmana child, this Shungi in his immature state, he curses this great king. And specifically, we see Shaunakadi Rishis being very inquisitive about the fact that even if Parikshit Maharaj was very detached in terms of the worldly responsibilities and worldly opulences, but his body was also the shelter for common mass of people in general. Its body, he himself was the shelter for the spiritual upliftment for people in general. So he might be very detached at his personal self, at his personal level, but for the sake of people, how could he afford to give up his kingdom and surrender himself on the banks of Ganges to hear this message of Srimad Bhagavatam, because his end end of his rule would invariably affect the spiritual upliftment, spiritual life of mass of people. So the sages of Naimisharanya, they were very, very inquisitive. So there we come to the beginning of this particular chapter. And we see Maharaj Parikshit, such a noble soul, although through inconceivable will of Lord Krishna, 18th chapter mentions, because Krishna wanted to bring him back home, back to Godhead, and he also wanted to uplift people in this Kali Yuga uh, by coming into this world, by incarnating in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Krishna arranged for a momentary error in discretion, momentary error in judgment by Parikshit Maharaj, where he was so much impacted by these bodily necessities of hunger and thirst. In fact, Srimad Bhagavatam mentions that how it was Krishna's will. That Parikshit Maharaj, who got so much affected by the bodily thirst and thirst and hunger for a moment, that he could not resist himself from you know, from committing an error in his judgment by garlanding the great sage Shamika Rishi with a dead snake. That same Parikshit Maharaj was able to give up that hunger and thirst not for one moment but for continuous 7 days of period. So that proves that that momentary error in judgment was Krishna's arrangement. Otherwise, Bhagavatam writes that it is not possible for a pure soul like Maharaj Parikshit to be that much disturbed that he would commit such an indiscretionary act like garlanding a sage with a dead snake. So we see Parikshit Maharaj was such a noble soul that as soon as he was out from Shamik Rishi's ashram while returning to his palace, he felt guilt within his heart, and he did pray, as we will see in the subsequent verses, for the reaction to that error in discretion that happened through his hand, that reaction to come upon him immediately. So let's start with the verses. So in terms of background to the chapter, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, do we have any question from anyone? Everybody is clear? How do we come to this part of first canto? What all has
Yes,
been? Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. So let us uh, recite the verse. Suta Uvacha
Sut
Bhuta
uvacha
Uvacha
महीपतिस्त्व अथा तत्कर्मगर्यम्
Mahipatesvatatatkarmakaryaṁ
विचिन्तयन् आत्मकृतं सुदुर्मनः
Vichintayam
Atmakritam
atmakritam sudurmanah
अहो मया नीचम् अनार्यवत्कृतं
Aho Maya
Maya
Nityananyavatkitam
nichamanayavatkitam
निरागसी ब्रह्मणि गूढ तेजसी
Ragasi
Niragati brahmani
Brahmani
tejasi.
Prabhuji's, Mataji's, those who would like to read can raise your hands and I will request devotees one by one. Hare Krishna. Jyoti Gupta Mataji. Others devotee can also keep their hands raised. Hare Krishna. Yes, Jyoti Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Such repentance is natural for a good man.
You can
Hare
read
Krishna.
through the translation first.
Translation. Okay, sorry, Prabhuji. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ji ki jai. Sri Suta Goswami said, while returning home, the king Maharaja Parikshit felt that the act he had committed against the faultless and powerful Brahmana was heinous and uncivilized. Consequently, he was distressed. Purport. Such repentance is natural for a good man like the king, and such repentance delivers a devotee from all kinds of sins accidentally committed. The devotees are naturally faultless. Accidental sins committed by a devotee are sincerely regretted, and by the grace of the Lord, all sins unwillingly committed by a devotee are burnt in the fire of repentance. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So for a sincere devotee, it is very, very important that if due to past conditioning, accidentally, if any untoward or incorrect or not so proper based on Vedic injunctions act is committed by a devotee, then we own our mistake. We don't try to cover it, or we don't try to repeat it by committing another wrong activity, the way, like, say, for example, Ashwatthama did. First he committed a jaganya, a greatly sinful activity, like killing the 5 sons of the Pandavas while in their sleep. But then subsequently, when his own life was under threat and danger from Arjuna, who was chasing him, he committed another mistake by throwing Brahmastra. So a devotee's behavior is not like that. A devotee owns up his mistake, and secondly, he is regretting, he is repentful of his behavior. He is not justifying the, oh, because I was troubled because of the hunger and thirst, and in that helpless condition I did a mistake, or I did indiscretion from my side in my act towards that great sage Shamika Rishi. Parikshit Maharaj is owning that mistake, and Bhagavatam says that such sincere repentance on behalf of the devotee, it greatly absolves that devotee from the resultant sinful reactions to this activity. Even this verse that comes in Bhagavad Gita, which apichetsu duracharo. So in that verse, Srila Prabhupada mentions, one second, Srila Prabhupada mentions that the specific activity, sorry, not this. What is the verse number?
39.30.
30, okay. Yeah. Api chetsu duracharo bhajate mam ananya bhag sadur eva samantavya samyak avyavasito hi saha. Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that this durachar, this incorrect activity on behalf of the devotee, are accepted as a momentary fault, and they are immediately corrected by the Lord only on certain conditions. And which are those certain conditions? That act should be because of the past conditioning and should be accidental. That sinful activity cannot be a pre-planned or pre-contemplated one. Then obviously the resultant reaction will be much more severe. But due to the past conditioning, if the devotee commits certain mistake or certain sinful activity, provided he is samyak avyavasito, that he is properly, rightly situated in the devotional service, Krishna will bring that soul back onto the right track, and Krishna still considers him as a sadhu, as a great soul. So here in the case of Parikshit Maharaj, we see that immediately he is repentant, he is immediately regretful. Though in the normal course of action, we see that Parikshit Maharaj is above all these bodily demands of hunger and thirst, as will be proved in while hearing rest of the cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is the first two qualities of a devotee. We said whenever some mistake happen, what should be the first thing we should do? Prabhuji's, Mataji's, Hare Krishna.
We should own it. Own
We
it.
should
Own
own
it.
it and not try to justify. And second one, we should be
Sincerely repenting.
repenting, correct. And we should also take suitable measures in order to correct that mentality by maybe chanting extra rounds or admitting our fault with devotee who do we trust, and then we try to improve upon that. And as we will see in the case of Parikshit Maharaj. So text 2, please try to repeat. Dhruvam tato me krutadev helana.
ध्रुवं ततो मे कृतदेव हेलना
Durattyayam vyasanam nati dirghat.
दुरत्ययं व्यसनं दीर्घात्
Tat astu kamam hi aganishkrita kritaya me. Yatha na kuryam punar evam adha.
यथा न
Hare Krishna. Madhumahi Krishna Kanta Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhuji, I have to read only the highlighted portions.
Translation, you can read the complete one, and purport highlighted portion.
Thank you, Prabhuji. King Parikshit thought, due to my neglecting the injunctions of the Supreme Lord, I must certainly expect some difficulty to overcome me in the near future. I now desire without reservation that the calamity come now, for in this way I may be freed of the sinful action and not commit such an offense again. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A man's personal misconduct affects all his family members. Therefore, Maharaja Parikshit desired the calamity to fall on him alone. By suffering personally, he would be restrained from the future sins, and at the same time, the sin which he had committed would be counteracted so that his descendants would not suffer. That is the way a responsible devotee thinks. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you. So we see what is a devotee's thought process, that if Lord Krishna is not granting the reactions for the wrongs that we commit, that doesn't mean that those sinful activities would, sinful reactions would just disappear like that. In fact, it is mentioned typically, if the sinful reactions take very long to manifest in the life, generally the severity is much, much more. So Parikshit Maharaj does not want that timing when he has to face the reactions to prolong, but he wants to face the reactions immediately and clear that incorrect or that error in judgment that happened from his side. And moreover, if that sinful reactions come many lifetimes down the line, he is worried that because that offense was committed unto the feet of a Brahmana, his subsequent descendants in the Kuru dynasty, in the Pandava dynasty, they would also suffer. So he does not want his descendants to suffer the resultant reactions of his incorrect wrong act. He wants himself to own and face the reaction immediately. In fact, he says, I now desire without reservation that the calamity come now. He doesn't want that reaction to be postponed. He wants to face that reaction now and clear it for once and all, and not leave it for future. Otherwise, it will come manifold, multiplied. So we proceed. Adyaiva rajyam balam ruddhakosham
राज्यं बलमृतकोशम्
prakopita brahmakulanalo me.
प्रकोपिता ब्रह्मकुलानलो मे
Dahatva abhadrasya punarna me bhut.
दहत्वभद्रस्य पुनर्न मे भूत्
Papi yasidhir dvijadev gobhyah.
Papi Dev Gobhyah.
Hare Krishna, Sarita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Sada pronouns.
Dandavat.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I am uncivilized and sinful due to my neglect of Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection. Therefore, I wish that my kingdom, strength, and riches burn up immediately by the fire of Brahmana's wrath, so that in the future I may not be guided by such inauspicious attitudes. Purport. Progressive human civilization is based on Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and protection of cows. All economic development of the state by trade, commerce, agriculture, and industries must be fully utilized in relation to the above principles. Otherwise, all so called economic development becomes a source of degradation. Cow protection means feeding the Brahminical culture, which leads towards God consciousness, and thus perfection of human civilization is achieved. The age of Kali aims at killing the higher principles of life, and although Maharaja Parikshit strongly resisted the domination of personality of Kali within the world, the influence of the age of Kali came to an opportune moment, and even a strong king like Maharaja Parikshit was induced to disregard the Brahminical culture due to a slight provocation of hunger and thirst. Maharaja Parikshit lamented the accidental incident, and he desired that all his kingdom, strength, and accumulation of wealth would be burned up for not being engaged in Brahminical culture, etc. Where wealth and strength are not engaged in the advancement of Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection, the state and home are surely doomed by providence. If we want peace and prosperity in the world, we should take lessons from this verse. Every state and every home must endeavor to advance the cause of Brahminical culture for self purification, God consciousness for self realization, and cow protection for getting sufficient milk and the best food to continue a perfect civilization. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So we sing this specific verse while offering the bhoga offering to the Lord. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanya Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. That Krishna is specifically very favorably inclined towards certain personalities, including the Brahmanas and the cow. And here it is explained that if the society has to flourish, if the world has to prosper, and we if the world has to have peace, then these two elements in the society, the Brahmanas and the cows, they need to be given proper protection, and the Brahmanical culture has to be nourished, has to be supported. Only then the society will be peaceful and would prosper. So what does it mean by having Brahmanical culture? It means that at least having certain class of people who are willing to devote their life to pursue a higher goal rather than running after the material enjoyment which is available for every single birth. As such, we don't have to spend this special birth of human life. At least some people should be there in the society who are convinced of this goal of life and should mold their life accordingly. Like Srila Prabhupada, he often mentioned one of the purposes of International Society for Krishna Consciousness was to create a society of Brahmanas. So does it mean that these Brahmanas that Srila Prabhupada is talking about are the Brahmanas based on the caste? No. Brahmanas mean that person, Brahma Janati iti Brahmana, that person who is pursuing his or her life with the goal of uplifting himself or herself for achieving Krishna, that person is truly a Brahmana. So unless there is a cultivation of this type of consciousness, and at least few people who are following a higher status of life in terms of following the rules and regulations, including those given in the Bhagavad Gita 1842, like Shama, Dama, Shaucha, Arjava, Ityadi. That means truthfulness, cleanliness, self-control, sense control, similar. So these all qualities of a Brahmana are very, very important and helpful to advance the cause of Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that if we create at least certain class of people within the society who are following this Brahmanical culture, then the whole society can prosper. Otherwise, the whole society is certain for degradation if we don't respect the Brahmanical culture and the cow protection.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have a doubt.
Yes, Mataji.
Yesterday's chapter, we were seeing that Kali entered. One of the reasons is because that Brahmin boy, he lost his Brahminical quality when he lost his temper, and it was the first attack on the Brahmanas. On the Parikshit became the first victim of the Brahmin arrogance. So there, Kali entered has been stated there. Today, we also have saying that the domination of Kali came at the opportune moment when Maharaj Parikshit was induced to disregard Brahminical culture. So Kali entered because of Parikshit Maharaj disregarding Brahminical culture, or because a Brahmin boy, was arrogant, or is it both, Prabhuji? Like, how did age of Kali enter in that question?
Very nice question. So one thing to understand is that Parikshit Maharaj is not an ordinary soul. He is a Nitya Siddha or eternal associate of Lord Krishna, descendant of the Pandavas and a pure devotee of the Lord right from his birth. In fact, not from his birth, but even before his birth, while in the womb of his mother, he got the darshan of the Lord and protection from the Lord. So definitely one thing is clear, as was explained even in the previous chapter purports, that Parikshit Maharaj's inadvertent error in judgment was Krishna's special arrangement for two reasons: to bring him back to Godhead, plus for Srimad Bhagavatam to appear. However, in the case of Shungi, we clearly see that while he had been taught to a certain level, certain vidyas or certain level of knowledge by his father, he was not yet mature to handle that knowledge. And definitely in case of Shungi, Srimad Bhagavatam does mention and support that he was affected by Kali Purusha, by the influence of Kali. So one was on the top, definitely there is arrangement of Lord Krishna, but for that arrangement to manifest Kali's influence upon this Brahmana boy, it became the trigger, and Parikshit Maharaj's momentary error in judgment, it became a trigger. But the original reason is Parikshit Maharaj is definitely not affected by Kali, and Shringi has been affected by Kali. Is that all right, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Krishna.
And there is also a detailed description in the, just one second, Mataji. There is also a detailed description in the earlier chapter how this particular act of Shungi, this impudent boy, it opened the gates for the deterioration of not just the Brahmana class. Bhagavatam mentions that it caused the deterioration of all other classes, because the Brahmana class, they lead the Varnashram institution. So their degradation also caused the degradation of the remaining three orders, including Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So definitely that was due to the influence of Kali. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Prabhuji,
Mataji.
in this connection, we have not seen in Bhagavatam, but I had heard earlier that it is like the fifth place Parikshit Maharaj has given that.
Your voice is going down, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear?
Yes.
So, Prabhuji, I'd heard it's not, I have not seen here in Bhagavatam, but earlier we had heard Parikshit Maharaj gave the fifth place to for Kali to stay in gold, right?
Yes.
Gold.
Yeah, it is mentioned in
there is
Bhagavatam. Yes.
Yeah. So it is like when he went to Shringi, not the Shamika Rishi. So that time it is because he was wearing a golden crown, and that through that Kali influenced and
Okay.
it made him speak.
So while the first part is clearly mentioned in the first canto, that because there were no adharma, there was not a place where irreligious activities were followed in the religious kingdom of Maharaj Parikshit, because everyone was following dharma so sincerely. So although Maharaj Parikshit intelligently gave 4 places to Kali to reside, including where there is breach in 4 regulatory principles, practically there existed no such place. So Kali requested to assign him a place where there is practical possibility of him residing, and Parikshit Maharaj granted the 5th place as where there is a accumulation of gold. However, this particular point of Parikshit Maharaj getting distracted or influenced by Kali because of wearing gold is not explicitly mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Mataji. Okay, so because it has not been explicitly stated, we won't speculate upon it whether that was the reason. But Bhagavatam does mention that it was a momentary lack of discretion by Lord's arrangement. Is that all right?
Okay, Prabhuji.
Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. So we proceed. So considering some we are lagging slightly, we would directly go to the translation and highlighted part of the purport. Sureshwari Sudamai Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam.
Dhanavad.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. While the king was thus repenting, he received news of his imminent death, which would be due to the bite of a snake bird, occasioned by the curse spoken by the sage's son. The king accepted this as good news, for it would be the cause of his indifference towards worldly things.
So we go through the highlighted part, but before that, we see that Parikshit Maharaj, while he was thus thinking in the previous verse, we saw that that resultant reaction for his incorrect activity, for the offense he has committed inadvertently towards the Brahmana, it should come immediately, so that that resultant reaction is not multiplied in the subsequent lifetimes. So as a result, when he came to know of the curse that was spoken by Shungi, by the Shamik Rishi's son, then Parikshit Maharaj accepted it. It's a very important lesson for all of us. How Parikshit Maharaj accepted it as the good news, for he feels that that would correct that indifferent mentality towards other living entities, especially the Brahmanas. So let's go through highlighted part of the purport. Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. Therefore, those who are materially poverty-stricken are better candidates than those who are materially prosperous. Maharaja Parikshit was a great devotee of the Lord and a bona fide candidate for entering into the kingdom of God. But even though he was so, his material assets as the emperor of the world were setbacks to perfect attainment of his rightful status as one of the associates of the Lord in the spiritual sky. As a devotee of the Lord, he could understand that the cursing of the Brahmana boy, although unwise, was a blessing upon him, being the cause of detachment from worldly affairs, both political and social. Shamika Muni sent news to the king.
We'll take a
Yes.
pause here. So
Yeah.
here it is mentioned that the material prosperity, sometimes it can be an impediment for a person to sincerely call out for Krishna. And there are multiple references in the scriptures. We see any specific reference, do we recollect, Prabhuji's, Mataji's?
Kunti Maharani.
Kunti
Yes.
prayers, Prabhuji.
Yes. What is that verse?
Janmaishwarya,
Sutashri.
Sutashri, Edamanam Madapuman,
Naivarhati.
Hatividadatum, right?
Kinchana
Kinchana
gochara.
Akinchana Gochara.
Kinchana Gocharaha.
Very nice, Mataji's Prabhu. So here, Kunti Maharani says that a high birth, material opulence, being born in a very opulent type of family or a very well-known family, or a high education, all these 4 which are considered as assets, if not properly taken, this can become an impediment. Why? Because edamana madah puman, when a person becomes maddened by pride because of these material assets, then for such a person, it becomes very, very difficult to wholeheartedly call out for Krishna. That's why Kunti Maharani says that Lord Krishna is the property of those who are materially exhausted. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a person, every single pauper, is a great devotee of the Lord. Not necessary. In fact, we see so many aristocratic kings and kingly personalities like Maharaj Parikshit, Maharaj Yudhishthir Maharaj, Amrish Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and so many other personalities. They were great devotees of the Lord despite being the sovereign kings of the entire earthly planet. So, material wealth or material poverty is not the criteria for being the great devotee of the Lord. But it depends upon the consciousness of the person. If he is considering all the assets as a means given by Lord Krishna to be engaged in the service to Lord Krishna, then they are definitely not at all an hindrance. But if a person is being materially attached towards them and because of that attachment is not able to depend upon Krishna, then they surely become impediment. And in case of Maharaj Parikshit, we can observe here how these were never an impediment. Why? Because Parikshit Maharaj, while he was living as the sovereign king of the world, he was engaging all these assets in service to Lord Krishna. And when the right moment came for him to be detached from them, he did not take even a single moment to give up all these opulences and hand over the kingdom to his son, Maharaj Janmejay, and then retire to the forest to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So this activity of Maharaj Parikshit itself proves that for him, all these were never an impediment. But in general, this can be an impediment for a person to surrender wholeheartedly to Lord Krishna. And that's why we also see a similar verse in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Krishna mentions to Yudhishthir Maharaj, Yasyaham anugrihnami harishe tat dhanam shanaye. That when Lord Krishna, he sees that these material assets are becoming sort of an impediment for a person to wholeheartedly commit himself or devote himself to Lord Krishna, then he gives special mercy to such persons by taking away those assets. And so that that person has nobody else apart from Lord Krishna to take shelter unto. But that was definitely not the case for Maharaj Parikshit. But still, to show an example, we see Maharaj Parikshit has been put into an situation where he has to uh, renounce all of these possessions and surrender wholeheartedly to Lord Krishna with nothing else as his shelter. Uh, Hare Krishna, Mataji, please continue. Shamika Muni.
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji. Shamika Muni sent news to the king that foolish Shringi, his son, although a powerful Brahmana boy, unfortunately had misused his spiritual power by cursing the king unwarrantedly. Both Shamika Muni and the king were self-realized souls. Shamika Muni was a mystic and Maharaja Parikshit was a devotee. Therefore, there was no difference between them in self-realization. Neither of them was afraid of meeting death. Maharaja Parikshit could have gone to the Muni to beg his pardon, but the news of imminent death was conveyed to the king with so much regret by the Muni that the king did not want to shame the Muni further by his presence there. He decided to prepare himself for his imminent death and find out the way to go back to Godhead. Hare
Thank
Krishna
you.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Maharaj. So here we see both the person who towards whom that offense inadvertently happened, that is Shamika Muni, as well as the person who committed that activity, wrong act, Parikshit Maharaj, both are great personalities, great devotees of the Lord. And neither did Shamika Rishi take any offense because of this momentary mistake performed by Parikshit Maharaj, nor did Parikshit Maharaj not own up his mistake. So both were that way okay to to be mature enough to handle the situation, but it was the immature act of Shungi which really created a whole lot of disturbance. And as we see, Shamik Rishi, he is repenting or he is lamenting the act done by his son Shungi, because he knows the position of Parikshit Maharaj. He knows that when Parikshit Maharaj will renounce the throne, how the irreligious elements will cause havoc, and how the upliftment of the spiritual life of the overall populace, how it will get impacted when Parikshit Maharaj retires and leaves his body. So Shamika Rishi was not at all happy. Here it is mentioned, foolish boy. He considered the act of his son as a foolish activity, and he was, what is the word that is used? He was regretful. The Muni was so much regretful that he passed this update to Parikshit Maharaj through a messenger. He did not even want to, you know, open up and give that news in person. Similarly, Parikshit Maharaj also did not want to embarrass Shamik Rishi further by being present before him, where the Shamik Rishi would all the more feel that, look, what has happened. The sovereign king, who was the protector of the religious uh, lives for all the people in general, he is going to die because of the foolishness of my son. So Parikshit Maharaj prevented that embarrassment to the sage by not going in person in front of him. And secondly, he also wanted to take this as an opportunity awarded by the Lord to prepare himself to go back home, back to Godhead. So he considered as inconceivable will of the Lord and surrendered to that will rather than uh, try to counteract that curse. And in fact, Bhagavatam does mention that Parikshit Maharaj had the capability to counteract the curse if he would have wanted. Bhagavatam mentions the way he was saved from death right in the womb of his mother, he could have very well be able to achieve the same, even now, protection from the death, if he so wanted. But that was not his will. He wanted to surrender to Krishna's will and go back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Let's go through the last part also.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Foolish men forget this sure fact of death and neglect the duty of preparing themselves for going back to Godhead. They spoil their lives in animal propensities to eat, drink, be merry, and enjoy. Such an irresponsible life is adopted by the people in the age of Kali because of a sinful desire to condemn Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection, for which the state is responsible. The state must employ revenue to advance from these three items and thus educate the populace to prepare for death. The state which does so is the real welfare state. The state of India should better follow the examples of Maharaja Parikshit, the ideal executive head, than to imitate other materialistic states which have no idea of the kingdom of Godhead, the ultimate goal of human life. Deterioration of the ideals of Indian civilization has brought about the deterioration of civic life not only in India but also abroad. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So here, Srila Prabhupada is explaining how ideal civilization is that brings the pursuit of common mass of people beyond the mentality to eat, drink, and be merry. So it goes beyond. And although in India, we do see that the great degradation has still happened because of the influence of Kali, but despite that, we still see, like in the on the occasion like Mahakumbha, for example, which happened in 2025 beginning, we see the greatest gathering of humans on the earth planet still happens in India on the occasion of such spiritual on such spiritual occasions like Mahakumbha, etc. So close to almost 64 crore plus people, they did visit that Kumbha place and for their spiritual upliftment. So that means despite so much degradation due to the age of Kali, still the pursuit for achieving a higher goal in life over and above eating, drinking, and be merry, that still remains a priority in India. So this is Vedic culture, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned, and India ideally should educate the common mass of people in how to achieve a higher goal at the end of one's life rather than living like an animal and trying to imitate Western culture. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. So we proceed. Hare Krishna, Shanti Sudesh Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Where should I read, Prabhu?
The translation and the highlighted part of the purport.
Okay. Maharaj Parikshit sat down firmly on the banks of the Ganges to concentrate his mind in Krishna consciousness, rejecting all other practices of self-realization because transcendental loving service to Krishna is the greatest achievement, superseding all other methods. The devotees are told by the Lord and his representatives, the spiritual master or acharyas, that not one of the planets within all the innumerable universes is suitable for the residential purposes of a devotee.
Continue.
Maharaj Parikshit was already aware of all this information due to his accumulated piety and birth in a high family of devotees, Vaishnavas, and thus he was not at all interested in the material planets. So when he was assured of his death on a fixed date, he became more determined in the transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna by complete fasting on the bank of the transcendental river Yamuna, which flows down by the capital of Hastinapura in the Delhi state. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. So Srila Prabhupada used to often mention one statement that this world is not a place for a gentleman to live. So same thing Srimad Bhagavatam also is saying that a devotee is not interested in achieving any planets within this material universe. That not one of the planets within the innumerable universes is suitable for the residential purposes of a devotee. So devotee can probably accept the birth if it is in service to Lord Krishna. But given an opportunity, what is his desired place to go? His desired place to go is the place which is Shashwat, which is eternal, in service to Lord Krishna, that is the spiritual world. So there is that famous verse, right? Samashritaye padapallava plavam mahat padam punya yasho murari bhavan budhai vatsa padam param padam yat vipadam natesham. Lord Brahma prays to Krishna in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that for such devotees, the place what they aspire to go is the place which is at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna in the spiritual world. They don't desire a place where there is danger at every step. Padam padam yat vipadam natesham. So they don't want to take birth in the material world unless the devotee is extremely elevated personality like Prahlad Maharaj, who is confident of remembering Krishna in every single situation in life. Srila Prabhupada says, for rest of us who are not on that caliber of spiritual advancement, we should safeguard our devotional service and try to go back home, back to Godhead as soon as possible. We should not delay our staying in this material world. And secondly, in terms of Maharaj Parikshit going to the banks of the Yamuna, if we read the subsequent part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada supports both. The translation of this verse could mean that Parikshit Maharaj took shelter of Shukadev Goswami on the banks of Yamuna, or it could also mean that he took shelter on the banks of Ganges, because Yamuna flows in Delhi, in Hastinapur, whereas Ganges, it is also near to Delhi. So it is not very far. So it can mean both. So don't get confused by use of these river names interchangeably. But mainly while discussing as such, we would refer to word as Ganges. Parikshit Maharaj surrendered to Shukadev Goswami on the banks of the Ganges river. Chitra Mohini Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, no. Translation.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The river Ganges, by which the king sat to fast,
carries the most auspicious water, which is mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord and tulsi leaves. Therefore, that water sanctifies the three worlds inside and outside, and even sanctifies Lord Shiva and other demigods. Consequently, everyone who is destined to die must take shelter of this river.
Thank you. Thank you. So please continue.
Yeah, Prabhuji.
Yeah, please continue. Text 7 translation.
Text 7, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Okay, Prabhuji. Maharaj Parikshit freed himself from all.
Thus the king. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is translation. Thus the king, the worthy. 1 minute, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Thus the king, the worthy descendant of the Pandavas, decided once and for all and sat on the Ganges bank to fast until death and give himself up to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who alone is able to award liberation. So, freeing himself from all kinds of association and attachment, he accepted the vows of this sage.
Thank you, Mataji. So before we go to the purport, in the previous verse, we saw the glorification of Ganges, that any personality who wants to perfect one's life, he is asked or he is recommended to take shelter of such holy river like Ganges. We see in the life of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had one such great devotee who used to worship Mother Ganges wholeheartedly. Anybody knows the name of this devotee? Prabhuji's Mataji? Kolavicha Sridhar. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mataji. So we see that although Kolavicha Sridhar, materially speaking, he was in so much of poverty, he was completely a pauper, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even used to tease him that, dear Sridhar, that what has your Krishna given you? You see, there are more holes in your dhoti which have been tied up in the form of knots than the dhoti itself, or there are too many holes in the roof of the thatched hut in which you live. And Sridhar used to have only one pot which he used to use for all his needs. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to tease him like that, and used to also mention, but I know that you are hiding a great treasure which I am going to reveal in front of the whole world at some point in time in future. And Sridhar used to take it literally by saying that, no, no, my dear Lord, I really don't possess any wealth. Whatever you see in front of your eyes is all I possess. And such a devotee who was a first class devotee, he used to spend half of his earning, which were already meager, by selling banana leaves, fruits, and other products of the banana plant. Whatever little bit earnings Sridhar used to get, he used to devote 50% of those earnings in service to Mother Ganges. So we see that the great devotees of the Lord, they do understand the potency and spiritual significance of this great river, Mother Ganges. So it is explained in the Shastras in many places that whoever a person desires to perfect his or her life should take shelter of such a holy river like Ganges. And Parikshit Maharaj also decided, yes, Mataji, highlighted part of the purport. Hare Krishna. All right. In the interest of time, I would read Mataji's, Prabhuji's. Mataji, I will ask you.
Can I read, sir?
Okay, Mataji. Quickly.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Maharaja Parikshit freed himself from all sorts of material association and meditated upon the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And that is the way of liberation. To be free from all material association means to cease completely from committing any further sins. To meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord means to become free from the effects of all previous sins. The conditions of the material world are so made that one has to commit sins willingly or unwillingly. And the best example is Maharaja Parikshit himself, who was a recognized sinless, pious king. But he also became a victim of an offense, even though he was ever unwilling to commit such a mistake. The principle is that one should not willingly commit any sin in his life and should constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord without deviation. Only in such a mood will the Lord help the devotee make regular progress toward the path of liberation and thus attain the lotus feet of the Lord. Even if there are accidental sins committed by the devotee, the Lord saves the surrendered soul from all sins, as confirmed in all scriptures.
Thank you.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mother.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So 2 points to note in this purport. First is the nature of this material world. Srila Prabhupada writes that the nature of this world is that even if one is unwilling, still one is induced to commit a sinful or a wrong activity. And Srila Prabhupada is explaining just like a sinless king like Maharaj Parikshit, who was a Mahabhagavat devotee, even he got induced in that momentary indiscretion to commit such a offense which he had to own up later. And second thing, Srila Prabhupada is again mentioning here that one should be consciously careful to avoid sinful activities, to avoid committing any sinful activities as much as possible. And if there are any accidental sinful activities that are committed due to our past conditioning, then Krishna will forgive and would resurrect the devotee on the path of spiritual life, like that verse that we saw, abhichetsu duracharo. So this is only applicable if that mistake has been committed accidentally because of the past conditionings, not in a planned sinful activities manner. If it is a planned sinful activity, definitely the resultant reaction will be much more severe, that we have to all know. And there is a very nice class on this verse, Apichetsu Durachara, where it is explained that it should not be 3 types of sin. It should not be planned and should not be planned due to the past conditioning. It can be due to the past conditioning, and it is accidental. That means because of the resultant reaction from the past activities, even unwillingly the devotee happens to commit it, then Krishna will help us with that. Otherwise, he won't for the planned sins. So we proceed. Text 8. Vijay Kumari Mataji, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji's, Mataji's, whoever names we are calling right, they can quickly unmute, or let me read just for the time's sake. At that time, all the great minds and thinkers, accompanied by their disciples and sages who could verily sanctify a place of pilgrimage just by their presence, arrived there on the plea of making a pilgrim's journey. Actually, they came to meet Maharaj Parikshit and not to take a bath of pilgrimage, because all of them were competent enough to sanctify the places of pilgrimage. Common men go to the pilgrimage sites to get themselves purified of all sins. Thus, the places of pilgrimage become overburdened with the sins of others. But when such sages visit overburdened places of pilgrimage, they sanctify the places by their presence. So, what is the verse that we get recollection of, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, that the devotees sanctify the places of pilgrimages?
Tirthi
Kirti
kurvanti
kurvanti
tirthani.
Yes,
Tirthani.
Tirthi Kurvanti Tirthani, which is Yudhishthir Maharaj's glorification of his uncle Vidura. That such a personality like Vidura or the great saintly persons, they purify such places of pilgrimage which become overwhelmed with sinful reactions because of so many people going there to purify themselves of those sinful activities, of their sinful reactions. So because of that, whenever the holy person visits a place, that place becomes automatically purified. Like we can see very practical example from the life of Srila Prabhupada. Many of you at certain point you might have seen, the Western world, especially during the winter season. It's very, very cloudy and the dull weather, and the most difficult commodity to get during the 6 months winter season there from October until March is the sunlight. It is very scarce, and person feels very dull and depressed and doesn't feel like doing anything. But in such a place, when Srila Prabhupada went, we can see from Leelamrut that at no point in time was Srila Prabhupada affected by this dull weather, which was not just dull from the point of view of perception, but it was also very, very dangerous considering the fragile health and the advanced age that Srila Prabhupada had at that point in time. So, such a pure devotee of the Lord, Bhagavatam explains that wherever he goes, it becomes a Vaikuntha, it becomes a Goloka place, and he transforms that place into a spiritual world because of his presence and because of his engagement in devotional service. Similarly, there is a beautiful verse that comes in Srimad Bhagavatam in the section of Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto, where it is mentioned by Prahlad Maharaj, "Oh my dear Lord, I am confident of remembering you even if I need to go to the hellish planets, and I'm perfectly okay even going to the hellish planets if need be. But you take the foolish persons of this material world first back to Godhead, and I can come last. Why? Because I know for sure I'll be able to remember you and sustain Krishna conscious life everywhere. But these foolish people, because they are attached to the material enjoyment, they have been fallen into this material world from time immemorial. So deliver them first, and then you can take me. Until that time, I am willing to live even in the hellish planets." So for a devotee, whether it is heaven or hell, he can make even a hellish place into spiritual world just by his presence and by his engagement in devotional service, as we saw from the example of Srila Prabhupada or even from the example of Prahlad Maharaj. So for a normal person, we are affected by the externals in terms of, like, if we go to a place like very, very in the mode of passion, say for example, in the business district in India, say if you visit places like Nariman Point or Worli, where the mode of passion you would find very strong, or you would visit the high-rise building areas in very materialistic places like Singapore or Hong Kong, just by being there, you find the mode of passion as very intensified. But for a devotee, all of these externals don't matter. Their presence and constant engagement in service to the Lord makes that atmosphere as Vaikuntha atmosphere. Any question on this point, Prabhuji's, Mataji's? Hare Krishna. All right. So Bhagavatam mentions that all these sages, they assembled at the banks of the Ganges on the plea or on the apparent reason of attending to a place of pilgrimage, but their sole purpose was to support Maharaj Parikshit and be with him till the time Parikshit Maharaj goes back home, back to Godhead. So in the next verse, which we won't go through the detail, the descriptions of various great personalities and the sages who had assembled there on the banks of the Ganges have been mentioned, including Shukadev Goswami's own spiritual master, Vyasadev's spiritual master, Narada, and Lord Shiva. All of these great personalities, they were also present there. So you can go through the detail. Radha Vallabhi Mataji, Hare Krishna. You can read through the translation of text 11.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandavat Pranam. There were also many other saintly demigods, kings, and special royal orders called Arundayas, a special rank of Raj Rishis from different dynasties of sages. When they all assembled together to meet the Emperor Parikshit, he received them properly and bowed his head to the ground.
Yes. So here we get reminded of another great devotee, Prabhuji's Mataji, who welcomed all the guests despite being in the most severe discomfort in terms of bodily state?
Bhishmadev.
Bhishmadev, yes,
Bhishmadev.
very nice.
Bhishmadev.
Bhishmadev. That Bhishmadev, who was lying on his deathbed on the bed of arrows, which were all piercing through his body. It is explained that there was not a place to put one's finger in between the two arrows. His body was so much pierced by all the arrows. But despite such painful bodily situation, Bhishmadev, it is mentioned that he could not speak or utter a word, but he did welcome all the guests just by the loving glances. He welcomed them properly. So here Parikshit Maharaj, despite being in such testing times where at such a prime youth of his life, he has been destined to die within 7 days of time, and where he has given up all his kingdom and wealth and children and wife and everything. So at such a difficult time also, he is receiving all the guests properly with proper respect.
The system of bowing the head to the ground to show respect to superiors is an excellent etiquette which obliges the honored guest deep into the heart. Even the first great offender is excused simply by this process, and Maharaja Parikshit, although honored by all the rishis and kings, welcomed all the big men in that humble etiquette in order to be executed from any offenses. Generally, at the last stage of one's life, this humble method is adopted by every sensible man in order to be excused before departure. In this way, Maharaja Parikshit implored everyone's goodwill for going back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you. So it is very important to inculcate this etiquette of offering our respect to the superiors by bowing down our head. In fact, in Srila Prabhupada's life in Lilamrut, we see at one place when Srila Prabhupada entered a temple, all the devotees bowed down, and one particular Western boy asked Srila Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, I don't feel like bowing. And what was Srila Prabhupada's response? Srila Prabhupada said, first you bow down and then you would feel like bowing down. So it is not just a question of what we feel or what we like or dislike, and neither is that devotee is asking for that honor and the respects to be offered to him. But when we offered respects to such great Vaishnavas, we are actually doing it for our own purification. We are getting purified ourselves. There is a famous statement, that stanza comes in Narottam Das Thakur's song, Tomaro Rudayo Sada Govinda Vishram. That in heart of such great devotees of the Lord personally manifests wholeheartedly. So offering respects to such devotees is also offering respects. As such, even offering respects to materialists is also offering respect to the Paramatma within the heart. But for the devotees, it is all the more true. And secondly, it is explained that how a person at the fag end of one's life, one should be humble and should beg for forgiveness from everyone before one's departure. And in Srila Prabhupada's life, we see that when Srila Prabhupada's god brother, Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, was called by devotees when Srila Prabhupada's health was too bad, and devotees knew that probably Prabhupada would have at the most few hours to leave before his departure. It was like few days, actually, not last few hours, but few days before Srila Prabhupada's departure, when Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj came to meet Prabhupada, Prabhupada was like, he begged forgiveness. He said that I was proud and I am Mahapatita. Of course, out of Prabhupada's humility, he can say. But what was Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj's response to Prabhupada? He said, dear Prabhupada, or I think they were not calling him as Prabhupada, but as their god brother, that you are not Mahapatita, but you are Mahapatita Pavana, that you are the deliverer of the most fallens. But we did see that Srila Prabhupada showed us through his own life the example of how to leave one's body, that he was very asking for apologies and forgiveness even to those around, though he was completely qualified and did not need to beg this forgiveness at all. He was presenting an example how an ideal death should be met by a devotee, how a devotee should meet one's end in life. So we proceed. I'll just take last 5 to 7 minutes, Prabhuji's, and we will cover these last verses also. Gayatri Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. After all the rishis and others had seated themselves comfortably, the king humbly standing before them with folded hands, told them of his decision to fast until death. Shall I proceed with purport?
Yes,
Prabhuji?
yes, ma'am. Yes.
1 second. Although the king had already decided to fast until death on the bank of the Ganges, he humbly expressed his decision to elicit the opinions of the great authorities present there. Any important decisions, however firmly fixed, should be confirmed by some authority. That makes the matter perfect. This means that the monarchs who ruled the earth in those days were not irresponsible dictators. They scrupulously followed the authoritative decisions of the saints and sages in terms of Vedic injunction. Maharaja Parikshit, as a perfect king, followed the principles by consulting the authorities, even up to the last days of his life. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. So this is a very, very important point which all of us we should follow in our own life, that any important decision in our life, they should be weighted by a devotee authority. Weighted, or other word is, they should be confirmed, double confirmed, validated by devotee authorities. Then through their validation, through their vetting process, we would get that empowerment to have our discretion very right one, and to perform that activity or succeed in whatever pursuit we are keeping in our life. So it is always important to seek the confirmation, permission, and blessings of a devotee before we start any initiative in our life. Just to give one example from Bhagavatam, we see, and that is a very amazing example in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We see Maharaj Priyavrat, who was devotedly practicing Brahmacharya Vrata by following the instructions of Narada Muni, the superior authority. And then subsequently, Swayambhuva Manu wanted Priyavrat Maharaj to get into household life and help him as a progenitor, as a Prajapati. And Priyavrat Maharaj, he aspired to remain a brahmachari lifelong. So he was very confused whether to follow the instruction of Narada Muni, his spiritual master, or follow the instruction of his father. And both are not ordinary personalities. Both are Mahajanas. Swayambhuva Manu and Narada Muni, both are Mahajanas. So that time, Priyavrat Maharaj, he prayed to the Lord, and there appeared Lord Brahma, who was a authority superior to both Narada Muni and Swayambhuva Manu, because he is the father of all living entities, including Narada Muni and also Swayambhuva Manu. So Brahma, he clarified the apparently contradictory injunctions given by these two authorities, and finally asked Priyavrat Maharaj to enter household life so that Swayambhuva Manu could retire. So because this initiative in the life of Priyavrat Maharaj, it was based on the vetting and on the confirmation given by Brahmaji, we see that subsequently, because of the influence of material energy, there was some diversion. Priyavrat Maharaj did get distracted from his path of Krishna consciousness while handling duties as a monarch, as a king. But because the decision to enter family life was weighted by the authority like Lord Brahma, Krishna helped bring him back and resurrect his spiritual life. Similarly, in our life, if we want to be ensured in terms of not getting off, not getting distracted from our Krishna consciousness, then we have to confirm our decisions from the great devotees. Then we would have the empowerment to continue in our pursuits. Any question on this point, Prabhuji's, Mataji's? Hare Krishna. All
No,
right.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
No, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Prema Priya Jayashree Mataji.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Translation.
The fortunate king said, "Indeed, we are the most grateful of all the kings who are trained to get favors from the great souls. Generally, you sages consider royalty as refuse, to be rejected and left in a distant place." I
Yes.
continue.
No, we'll explain, Mataji. So here, Maharaj Parikshit is especially showing his gratitude to the sages. Why? Because typically these saintly persons, they avoid the company of worldly opulent persons like the kings, etc. Why? Because that is one of the aspect, material prosperity, which for a renunciate is considered like a poison. So to protect their own Krishna consciousness, typically sadhus and the sannyasis, the renunciates, they are advised not to associate very closely with materially opulent persons. Like we see in the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was refusing time and again to meet and give audience to Maharaj Pratap Rudra, to the extent that the king was so much disheartened by not getting the audience of of Lord Chaitanya, that Pratap Rudra Maharaj wanted to give up his kingdom. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the sincerity and service attitude of Maharaj Pratap Rudra in arranging the residential quarters for the devotees coming from Odisha and Bengal to spend Chaturmasya season, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally granted his audience to Maharaj Pratap Rudra. So the point is, typically the saintly person, they won't come to associate closely with a king like Parikshit Maharaj, but Parikshit Maharaj is offering gratitude that thank you all very much, that despite you typically not associating with worldly persons, still have come to support me. So thank you very much for it. He is expressing his gratitude. And then we go to text 14. Dipti Mati Kalindi Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of both the transcendental and mundane worlds, has graciously overtaken me in the form of a Brahmana's curse. Due to my being too much attached to family life, the Lord, in order to save me, has appeared before me in such a way that only out of fear I will detach myself from the world.
Yes, Mataji. So this yellow part of the purport we will come to in a while, but before that we would read translation of text 15 also.
Shall I read,
Yeah,
Prabhuji?
yes, please continue.
Yes, Prabhuji. Translation. O Brahmanas, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in that way. For I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird or whatever magical thing the Brahmana created bite me at once. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Mataji. So in the previous purport of text 14, Srila Prabhupada writes that Maharaj Parikshit, although born in the family of a great devotees like the Pandavas, and although securely trained in transcendental attachment for the association of the Lord. So if the personality like Maharaj Parikshit, who is so exalted in his devotional stature, if he feels the family life or the allurement of mundane family life so strong that one needs to be careful about it, and in time one should be detached from it to surrender completely unto the Lord, then how much careful all of us should be. Like one time, uh, here in Pune, we had a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada visiting His Holiness Jai Advaita Swami Maharaj. And Maharaj is especially known all over ISKCON for a very shastric to the point answers to philosophical questions. So one person from the audience, he asked Maharaj that, Maharaj, is it really required for one to give up family life in due course of time? And in to accept life of renunciation either as a vanaprastha or as a sannyasi, and for everyone, what is your opinion? And what did Maharaj mention? Maharaj mentioned that even if you have a wife as devoted as Devahuti, and you have a son as obedient and exalted as Kapila Dev, still the way Kardama Muni renounced his family life at right point in time, the way Pandavas renounced their family life at right point in time, the way Parikshit Maharaj is showing that he renounced his family life at right point in time in his life, one should definitely renounce from worldly responsibilities. And Bhagavatam says at least have last 15, 20 years of one's life reserved completely for service, for dedicated service to Lord Krishna. So this particular aspect of renouncing the worldly duties, it is not the question of physical location. Prabhupada says one can still be in one's living one's home, but completely devoted to service to Lord Krishna. But the pursuit in at that particular point in time in our life should be solely to practice Krishna consciousness, and not basically slowly reduce and hand over the responsibilities for material day-to-day business, etc., to the subsequent generation. We should be wholeheartedly engaged in hearing, chanting, remembering, rendering service to the Lord. So that is very, very important if we want to be detached from our materialistic pursuits till the end of our life. And Prabhupada says if Maharaj Parikshit felt a need for renunciation, renouncing everything of his family life, etc., then all of us should also take it very, very seriously. So with this, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, we would conclude here, and my deep apologies for starting late because I missed that today was the session. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions, queries, thoughts to share from anyone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Prabhuji, can
Krishna.
you please repeat the name of this senior devotee who answered this question, Prabhu?
Yes, his name is His Holiness Jai Advaita Swami Maharaj. Okay, and
Thank you, Prabhuji.
you would be happy to know that he has been one of the editors of Srila Prabhupada's books for BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. So all the books we read, including Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, they have all been through editing of Jai Advaita Swami Maharaj. And there is a beautiful series of 7 lectures given by Maharaj, which is entitled The Hopes and Horrors of Family Life. It's a very wonderful series. In fact, before getting married, I had also heard that series, and I intend to hear again by making time for it. So that series of classes explains how in family life, what are the hopes for us to perfect our life, and what are the allurements, what are the dangers of which we have to be very, very careful about in order to not fall in that trap. Otherwise, we can also get stuck in the materialistic life even after death. So that is a very inspiring series of classes. Hare Krishna.
Will it be possible to give the name
Prabhuji,
of
Hare
the
Krishna,
series?
Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavats Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji, sometimes we feel that when we are, considering that we are surrounded with everyone who is, I won't say they are not devotees, but we are surrounded with various categories of people, no? They are trying to help us, but the point is when we feel, okay, we are going more into towards bhakti, then again we get to, there's something that we have to halt and give a thought to it, because the family life is calling you with respect to certain responsibilities. that at that point in time, in order to balance both the things, we need to take, I mean, we have to, because of the situation, it's like we are into devotion, but we have to just limit our devotional service. I would like to say that restriction, like that, up to what particular point we can do if everyone is not into Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, recently, I heard a very relevant instruction regarding this from class given by Radhesham Prabhu, where Prabhuji was mentioning that we should perform our service or fulfillment of our responsibilities towards the family members, etc., as a very important duty that has been assigned to us by Lord Krishna.
Yes,
So
Prabhuji.
we do it wholeheartedly, but at the same time, when it is performed as a duty, we are also detached from it, as in we try our level best, but at the same time surrender to the will of Lord Krishna, that all of the souls are Krishna's children and he has given them minute independence. So at the end of the day, despite our best efforts, how much to take benefit of Krishna consciousness and etc., it is between Krishna and them. So we nobody can 100% push or confirm that everybody around us will be a devotee of Lord Krishna. What to speak of us in the family of Lord Krishna? The son of Lord Krishna in the form of Varahadev and Bhumi Devi, he was Narakasur or Bhaumasur. So
Yes.
if a demon can appear in the family of Lord Krishna, what to speak of any other scenario? So of course we don't say that a person in our life is a demon, but we acknowledge the free will of that person and the limitations of our own selves in completely transforming the heart of others. So till the very end, we fulfill our responsibilities as a loving mother, father, sister, brother, daughter, son, whatever. But at the end of the day, we do acknowledge our limitations, that
True.
I try my level best, and then let's see what is Krishna's will. I accept it wholeheartedly.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
So be affectionate, but don't be attached. That's what
Yes,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji, that's right. But yeah, that is true. That is the way we are doing, Prabhuji, that we understand they are part and parcel of the Lord. And now it is because of our order, as you mentioned. It is our only, this is our order which we had placed. I mean, so we are
Yeah, so
fulfilling it. So yes,
that
thank
is
you.
example. Hare Krishna, Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Dandavat, Mataji. Are there any
Prabhuji,
other?
yes, it has really brought so many changes, because there are devotees around here. So the changes are being reflected in the at home also. So that ways it is a plus point.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
And at the end of the day, each person in our family is a Jiva soul. They are with us in this life by the arrangement of time factor. And Bhagavatam gives the example of just like in a flooded river, various logs of wood and the uh, branches and the leaves, etc., they come together for a while, flow in the flow of river, and after a while, they again go their separate ways. So we have had innumerable number of father, mother, husband, wife, son, daughter, and other relationships. So this life, we have got one set of relatives. So we have to fulfill our responsibility toward them, but not forget our eternal responsibility to revive our Krishna consciousness. Then we would see things holistically and not get too attached. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, but it makes a lot of difference if the family member has gone into bhakti, especially the female of the house. It really still makes a lot of difference for the other family members. It's by
Definitely.
induction or it's by whatever, it's contagious or whatever we say, but it does make a lot of difference. Their food habits, their time devotion. Yeah.
True, man. That's why it is said, both in terms of education as well as bhakti, that we don't just make one woman or lady a devotee, we make the whole family. Why? As you
Family.
said, that they have a great influence. But that influence has to be exerted in a loving manner and at the same time with the accepting the will of Krishna at the end of the day.
The
Hare
less we pressurize, the more it gets attracted by itself.
Yes, yes.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
So if there are no other questions, then thank you very much and apologies for the
Krishna
delay.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Prabhuji, I
Krishna.
have a very
Yeah.
small query that is regarding,
Yes.
like I was enforcing my neighbors for doing this Ekadashi Vrat, and also they were saying once you say Hare Nam Kevalam Kalo Nastev Nagatir Anyatha, you're telling us to take Hare Nam. Now you enforce that you're saying Ekadashi, where is it is mentioned that Ekadashi will help, and when you yourself are admitting that it is only Hare Nam that will do the take us going back home, back to Godhead.
Yeah. So two aspects we can explain to them, that first of all, the Ekadashi Mahatmya is very well documented in description of Supreme Personality of Godhead's conversation, Krishna's conversation with Yudhishthir Maharaj. We see the significance of each of these Ekadashis having been mentioned and documented. Second thing, how does it relate to the normal devotional service that we perform? We can maybe give an example, just like, on a normal day, Amazon or Flipkart, there are various commodities, items that are available for sale. But at the same time, there are so frequently various special days that are nominated on which we get great discount, or we can get much more quantity of items at the same price. So like Black Friday, Christmas, New Year, Diwali, so on and so forth. So Ekadashi day, great acharyas like Bhakti Vinod Thakur, they have mentioned Ekadashi Bhaktir Janani. That means these are the days which can nourish our devotional service greatly if we reduce bodily necessities and increase our intensify our devotional service more. So we can give them this example only to the extent that they are willing to accept. So if they are too resistant, ask them, okay, at least you chant, don't worry. Rest of the rules will come much later, slowly.
Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Hare
Very
Krishna.
practical. Like it is a kind of a thing which will, I think they'll be able to digest the fact. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you.
so
Thank you,
much.
Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Vamcha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti Vaishnav vrinda ki jai. Vaishnav Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you very much,
Thank you
Prabhu.
so much,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Excellent session.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Radha. Thank you.
So much for
Hare